Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us again with Rise Leadership Academy. We are Main Street Church of God in Christ, where our founder and pastor is Elder Brandon Clay. I am your facilitator, Evangelist Pamela Edmondson. I am honored to be able to provide another training. Today's training will be leading across generations. Did you hear me? It's leading across generations. We're going to be talking about the generational gap. So I want you guys to buckle in as we really dig into generations and that gap and how we can bridge that gap. Okay. So let me first state that this training is not about making one age group right and another age group wrong. That's not what this training is about. It is about building leaders who can connect people with different histories, communication habits, expectations, and motivations. You see, every generation has something to give and something to learn. The old mindset says they need to come up to our standard before we trust them. But a corrected leadership mindset says we will protect the mission, teach the standard, and build a bridge that helps people grow into responsibility. So what that means is that we as or shall I say those seasoned leaders are helping the younger leaders come up, the younger generation come up through the ranks. We are educating from the top down and in some cases from the bottom up. It goes hand in hand. It's bridging that gap. You know, a bridge goes both ways. You cross it from either side, right? And you have to meet in the middle. So this is what this training is about. It's about helping us to bridge that gap. Okay. So when we look at this training in the church, what this really means is that traditional members, young adults, and emerging leaders can serve together without dishonoring the foundation. So what does that mean? That means that, again, they can work together. You take both of those paradigms and you mix them together. And what they do is they make things work together. They make it better together. Now, when we look at it from corporate America side, this means experienced employees, mid-career leaders, and new talent can work together without constant misunderstanding. So this training will include correction, reflection, practice, and action. Let's get into it. Okay, so you heard me mention the bridge, okay? So the first thing that we want to do, we will reflect on is building a bridge. So when we build a bridge, we're thinking of build a bridge strong enough for wisdom to cross one way and fresh vision to cross the other way, right? So we honor the past, we hear the present, we prepare the future. You know, correction begins when leaders stop treating the next generation as a threat. You know, a bridge does not erase the land on either side. It connects what could have stayed separated. So this is the work of the generational leadership. You know, wisdom must be able to cross toward the future and have fresh vision and must be able to cross back toward that foundation. When either side refuses to cross, the organization becomes divided. And we've seen divided organizations before where you have the older generation going against the younger generation. If you want to look in corporate America, you have the older executives looking down on the younger executives saying they don't know what they're talking about. Y'all, we see it whether it's in corporate America or whether it's in the church. It's the same mindset. And that is what we want to dispel today. We want to break that train of thought. We want to shift the mindset now so that we understand how we can come together. So when we are talking about an old mindset believes that younger people are automatically disrespectful because they communicate differently. or that older people are automatically outdated because they move carefully. A better mindset asks, what are they trying to protect? What are they trying to build? What do they need in order to trust? So when you think about it from a church perspective, think about it from this way, from this standpoint. We don't want to throw away tradition, but we do not want to let tradition become a wall, meaning it's blocking growth, it's blocking the future, it's blocking where we can go because times are changing, right? And when we look at it from a corporate perspective, you don't want to dismiss experience, but do not let experience block innovation. So yes, you may have individuals that have been with a company for 15, 20 years, but you have a new generation that's coming in with fresh ideas, fresh thoughts, fresh vision, and we bridge that together. Same thing, either way, it goes hand in hand, whether it be the church or whether it be corporate America. So, why does this training matter? Y'all, this training matters because when leaders fail to translate across generations, difference turns into distance. So look at this puzzle, and I want you guys to kind of pay attention to this puzzle. If you look at this puzzle closely, you'll actually see where we have missing pieces in the center. Can you see that? You know, at the end of the day, all the pieces come together. Now they've made the circle on the edges, right? But even if you look on the circle on the edges, you'll still see missing pieces. But when we start to bridge everything together, if we do it the right way, then we could have a perfectly put together puzzle. But it's when we don't have that, we're not bridging that gap, that's where we end up with misunderstanding, becoming mistrust. Different styles get labeled as disrespect. Silence becomes disengagement. Uncorrected assumptions become culture. So I want us to think about that for a minute. When we talk about generational conflict, y'all, generational conflict is usually not one big explosion. It is usually a collection of small assumptions that go unaddressed. Someone sends a short text message and another person hears disrespect in that message. We know it all the time. That's why I encourage individuals, don't text. If you can pick up the phone and call and talk to somebody if you can. A lot of times we send short messages because that's our communication style, and somebody will perceive your style of communication differently. We've talked about it before in our training, how if you do bold letters in your emails, if you do bold in your text messages, people will take that as you're yelling at them. Sometimes short and sweet will come across as you're being too direct, you're being too pushy, you're not trying to communicate with me. So it's all about the communication style. People perceive messages differently, and we have to understand how to communicate across generational boundaries, across these different generational sectors. We got to learn how to communicate. So if someone asks a question and another person may hear that may hear that question as an act of rebellion, simply because they wanted more clarity and that's how they're looking at it. But in your eyes, you're saying, but I told you what to do. And now you're basically coming against what I told you to do. But it's all about perspective, right? It's perception. How do we perceive what's being said to us? How do we perceive what the other side is doing? And that's the gap that we have to bridge. You know, in the church, this can show up as young adults drifting away because they do not feel heard, while traditional members feel dishonored by sudden changes. When you look at the corporate side, it can show up as frustration over communication channels, deadlines, feedback frequency, remote work expectations, or what professionalism should look like. What we have to do as leaders, leaders cannot keep blaming the people they have not learned to understand. Let me say that again. Leaders cannot keep blaming the people they have not learned to understand. Leadership requires translation. It does not mean lowering standards. It means explaining standards in a way people can receive, remember, and apply. Think about the young generation. Young generation need to be able to communicate respectfully and professionally to the older generation, and the older generation has to be able to do the same thing with the younger generation. You see, the key word in all of this is communication. And if communication is not done properly, then we create a divide. So, y'all, what we're going to be walking through, or what I hope that we walk away with today, is that we recognize, we reset, connect, manage, and practice. So let me explain what I'm looking for with this. The goal is not to memorize generational stereotypes. We're not trying to do that. The goal is to lead with enough wisdom to recognize communication patterns, ask better questions, and build systems that help different people work together. And by the end, you should be able to identify where generational misunderstandings are showing up, correct the mindset that feeds them, and apply a few tools immediately. Think about it from the church perspective. We have ministry teams, board meetings, we have worship planning, outreach, volunteers, we have the educational ministry, you got leadership ministry, you got so much going on, so many different ministries. How are we communicating from the seasoned generation down to your younger generation? How are we properly communicating and growing up that younger generation so that we are birthing new leaders? How are we communicating with them? And we're going to dig into that a little bit more. When you look at the corporate side of the house, think about it. This is going to affect how you do projects that you may work on with teams, staff meetings, onboarding, feedback that you may receive from your teams, hybrid work or remote work that we've kind of we're shying away a little bit from when it comes to more of your state agencies and things of that nature in some states. So it's looking more toward the hybrid work or professional expectations. What do you expect from your folks? What do you expect from your folks that work for you? Think about it. Are we properly communicating that? So this training will help you to understand what you need to communicate, how you need to communicate it in order to develop a team. Okay, let's dig a little deeper. Okay, so a corrected leadership mindset, y'all, this is how we need to properly communicate. Now, that old mindset often sounds protective, right? But it creates distance. So we'll say things like, they need to learn how we do it. I know we've heard seasoned individuals say that before. They need to learn how to do it the way we do it. And for the younger generation, y'all, what that does is create additional divide. It creates distance, and they don't want to work with the older generation. And where you may be saying, as a seasoned individual, I'm just setting standards, but for somebody else, it becomes exclusion, that you're not trying to include them in on your world, and you're not trying to hear what they're saying. Young people do not care. That's how we perceive it when we hear things of that nature. You know, for your young generation, the young generation may sound like, for them, it is, you're not listening to me. You didn't hear me. You're not respecting my thoughts. You're not trying to hear what I have to say. Look at the different mindsets that we have here, the different examples. So you look at the old mindset. The old mindset says they need to learn how we do it, right? But if you shift that mindset and say, we will teach why it matters and invite them into the work, that shift the whole paradigm. That changes how it's viewed. Now I'm not saying they got to learn my way. Now I'm saying we will teach them why this way matters and invite them into the work, which means I'm inviting you to share your thoughts, to share your ideas, and to hopefully take what matters to us and make it even better with some new ideas, some new innovation. Think about it when we say young people do not care. If we shift the mindset, now we can change that language and say they may not connect to the method yet. Change the way you think. How can young people connect with the method if they don't have the understanding of it? And oftentimes, what we want to do is to bash the younger generation, but we're bashing them when they don't understand. How do we get here in the first place? What is our history? What was this church birthed out of? Where are we going? What's the vision? What's the mission? Why is that important? Now we have a generation coming up where they're more inquisitive. They want to know, why is this necessary? Why is this important? And it's not rebellion. We look at it as rebellion when you're looking at your seasoned generation. It comes across to the seasoned individuals as they're rebelling, but all they want to do is be able to ask questions and get answers because they're more inquisitive. Where it used to be, you do what I say. Now we have a generation where they will do as asked with explanation. So look at another old mindset. Another older mindset says older leaders resist everything. But if you shift it, and this is the young generation, now the young generation can say they may be protecting what cost them something. Again, it's all about the shift in how we communicate. We have to remember that the younger generation, they didn't see how this thing was birthed. They didn't see how the church was developed. They didn't see how the job came to be. They didn't see all the work and the sweat and the tears that has been passed down from pastor to pastor, from mother to mother, from member to member. They don't know the work that went into this. They don't know the work that went in with corporate America. They do not know. So if they don't know this, we have to educate. We have to be willing to educate. All right. So here we are. Generations are context, not boxes. Age gives clues. It does not give permission. Let me say that one more time. Age gives clues. It does not give permission to stereotype. So let me break that down a little bit more. So I want us to look at it from this perspective. When we talk about generational language can be useful, but it can also become lazy. Age can help us understand common experiences, but every person is shaped by more than age. A 25-year-old who grew up serving in church may communicate differently than another 25-year-old who did not grow up in the church. A 60-year-old who spent years in technology may respond differently than a 60-year-old who has never used technology. They don't know what a team chat is. It's all about the communication. We can't stereotype and put everybody in a box. And oftentimes that's what we want to do. We want to put everybody in a box, but if we communicate properly, we change that paradigm. We change that generational barrier, that wall that has been put up. Use generational context as a doorway to better questions, not as a box to trap people in. So when we think about church leaders, think about it from this perspective. Members may carry history with church hurt, loyalty to tradition, or deep sacrifice. But when you think about the corporate side, employees may carry deep experiences with authority, feedback, technology, and career security. It's all about perspective and what someone has went through, right? So look at it this way. When we think about bringing correction, think about it this way. A leader who says this is just how their generation is, that means you've stopped leading. When we start saying things like that, we have stopped leading. Now what we're doing is creating division. But a leader who asks what shaped that response is ready to build trust. So when we look at this picture, look at everything. You got this person here in the center, the yellow circle. But that person has been shaped by family history, culture, church experience, work history, trauma or trust, technology exposure. And this is your young generation over here, and that can go for young or your seasoned generation. But we also have the other generation, the seasoned generation, looking and saying, okay, now I need to be more curious and I need to ask more questions without criticism. We don't criticize, we ask questions to gain clarity. You know, Psalms 78, 4-7, it teaches that each generation has a responsibility to tell the next generation about God's power, faithfulness, and mighty works. And God's truth should not be hidden or allowed to end with one age group. It must be intentionally passed from parents, elders, and experienced leaders to children and emerging leaders so they will know what God has done, place their hope and confidence in Him, remember His works, obey His commands, continue teaching future generations. So when we look at that, at Psalm 78, and we look at what does that mean from a leadership perspective, y'all, we look at it because it says every generation carries something the next generation needs. Experienced leaders must share their wisdom and testimony, while emerging leaders must be prepared to receive it, live it, and pass it forward. We have to be willing to sit down and talk. Your seasoned generation have to be in a place to where they educate the young generation. The young generation have to be willing to sit down and glean or gain knowledge from the older generation. And we meet in the middle. We bridge that gap. Everybody brings something to the table, young or seasoned. We all bring something to the table. And we have to be willing to hear each other, so that we can all work together to make this thing better, whether we are working for the church, for the body of Christ, or whether we're working in corporate America. We all have to work together for the good, for the ultimate goal, which honestly should be about representing the kingdom. Because at the end of the day, somebody's watching. I always say that somebody's watching what we're doing. But we got to be able to communicate in order to carry out the vision, to carry out the mission of the church, to carry out the vision, the mission of that corporate job that you may have. So there are 4 leadership lenses that we have to be able to look through, that we have to incorporate into our leading of others. Every generational misunderstanding can usually be traced back to one of these 4 areas. Communication is how people want to receive information. So expectations are what people think leaders, teams, or ministries should do. Motivation is what makes people show up and give effort. Trust is what makes people believe the message and the messenger. So when you think about the church, a traditional member may trust a leader because the leader has served faithfully for decades. A young adult may trust a leader because the leader is transparent, relational, and willing to answer. In a corporate setting, a seasoned employee may trust a leader who documents decisions and follow processes. A newer employee may trust a leader who gives feedback quickly and explains the bigger picture. We have to remember age is not the starting point. The starting point is understanding what the person needs in order to communicate, commit, and trust. You see, a lot of times what happens is the seasoned or the young, either way, because it goes both ways. The seasoned and the young are both, they're bumping heads because they're looking at each other. The seasoned is looking at, okay, we were brought up this way. We did it this way. This is how we carry ourselves. You should carry yourself this way. And the young generation is saying, but this is a new generation. They always want us to follow what they're doing, but we've changed. We're in a new era. We're in a new day now. Nobody wants to sit down and talk about the importance of anything. And that is what we have to do as leaders. We got to communicate across the aisles. The generations have to communicate. Why is dress attire important? Why is it important to speak in a certain manner? Why is it important to carry yourself in a certain manner when you're in the church or when you're in the workplace? Why is it important to speak a certain way? Why is it important to think a certain way or to show yourself friendly or to work as a team or to be engaged? Why is that important? Why is it important to read your word? If we're going to dig, let's dig. Why is it important? A lot of times we talk about we come at each other, but we never talk about the history behind why we are the way we are, or why we think the way we think, or why we act the way we act. We don't give that backstory. We don't talk about, for example, we don't talk about holiness and why holiness is important. The younger generation coming up, all we do is bash them and talk about, you got to be holy, be ye holy, for I am holy. We throw scripture at them. But we also got to remember while we're talking to them and we're communicating all of this different stuff, they're also watching what we're doing. So you're talking about be ye holy for I am holy, but yet I just saw you over there being nasty to somebody, talking crazy to somebody, but yet you telling me I need to be holy. Okay, so now you telling me, that I need to be more respectful, but yet you just disrespected me. So it goes hand in hand. Seasoned individuals can disrespect the younger generation and vice versa. How are we communicating? And when we are meeting together, are we laying out our expectations? This is what I expect of you. And then I need you to tell me, what do you expect of me? So that we're clear on what we expect of each other. I expect you to teach me how to be a better Christian, to be a better steward of my funds, to be a better steward of tithing, to be a better steward of how to pray, to be a better steward of serving. I expect you to help me to be a better steward of my time. It's all about the communication and communicating your expectations and then being motivated. Why do I need to care about this thing? Why do I need to commit to this thing? What's the history behind it? I'll go back to, we talk about committing. We don't give kids, the younger generation, we don't give them the history on why it's important to commit to something. Why is it important to commit to the church? Why is it important to commit to this church? Why is it important? Do we talk about the history of when, we have our annual days and we put out stuff and we read stuff, but do we really share our heart? What was your experience growing up in the church? What did you have to go through in the church? What led to us getting here? What price did you pay to get here? What did you give up to get here? Why should I care? Why should I be committed to this? We don't have those conversations, the heart to heart, because oftentimes we, as the seasoned generation, we hide our experiences, because now that we have been saved, sanctified, delivered, now we want to hold back our testimony and what we've been delivered from. But it's by the sharing of our testimony that others are helped and others are saved. And we need to get back to giving our testimony so the younger generation know why we're passionate about what we're passionate about, why we care, and why we communicate the way we communicate, so that we can again bridge that gap. They have an understanding of us, but we also can gain an understanding of them and why they want things the way they want things. And we find that place in the middle, right? It's all about sharing your experiences. The more you share, the more people tend to trust you, because you become more vulnerable and allow them to see you, to truly see you. So when we talk about communication styles, communication is often where the generational tension shows up first. Some people hear respect through a phone call, an in-person conversation, or a formal meeting. Others hear respect through speed, clarity, and quick confirmation. Neither style is automatically better. They serve different needs. So think about it this way. A young adult may text, "Can we talk?" and think they are being efficient. A traditional leader may hear the brevity as too casual. You're being disrespectful. You're talking to me too casual. Because some of your older generation is thinking, what happened to, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, sir, Matt, what happened to that very professional or respectful tone that we were raised to relay when we're communicating with someone? A seasoned individual may send a detailed email on the job and think they are being professional, but a newer employee, a younger employee, may skim it and miss the decision because they expected a chat or a clear action line. Just tell me what to do. That's what your younger generation, just say, okay, go make some copies. But a professional is going to be maybe a little bit more detailed in what they say and why they're asking what they're asking. It's all about the communication style and how we are communicating with each other. We have to understand both generations. So one of the things we got to stop doing, we got to stop judging character before clarifying the channel. Leaders should set communication agreements. What goes by email? What goes by text or chat? What requires a meeting? How quickly should people respond? How are decisions confirmed? See, we don't have those conversations. And then we get mad when people don't respond a certain way or when they don't communicate a certain way. It's because we haven't laid out any expectations. We haven't explained what the communication style should be, what the method should be, whether it should be formal or whether it should be relational, whether it should be fast or digital, whether it should be inclusive, whether it should be repetitive. We haven't explained anything. We have not communicated the style in which we want. So you can't get mad when you don't communicate what you're looking for. So we have to be clear on our expectations and what we want. So what I would say to us as a people, what we have to do is understand that we have to communicate using proper announcements, text groups, personal calls, follow-up notes. Let people know when all of that's relevant. And then let us know how you want it done. How should the announcement read? Who should be in the text group? How should we communicate in the text group? What goes in the text group and what don't go in the text group? When should we make personal calls? When should we not make personal calls? What's your time limit? Don't call me after 7 o'clock. Don't call me after 10 o'clock. Send me an email. The best way to get me is a text message, but don't text me after 7. Don't text me before 8 o'clock in the morning. What are your expectations? What are you communicating? Because you have to remember, for some seasoned individuals, they may love it if you text them at 6 o'clock in the morning because they may be up drinking coffee. I'm typically up drinking coffee at 6 o'clock in the morning. So for me, if I get a text message at 6 o'clock, that's fine. But for somebody else, that may not be okay. But have we communicated that? Have we communicated that to the younger generation? Have we explained what we're looking for? Vice versa. Do you know what the younger generation is looking for? How to communicate with them? What works better for them? Just because somebody is young, that doesn't mean they don't like talking on the phone. That doesn't mean that they don't mind, that they don't want you emailing them or that they want you texting them. It doesn't mean that. You don't know till you communicate. Okay? So let's think about it this way. When we look at James 1:19, it says, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. And then we go over to Proverbs 18:13, which says, he that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. So what this is really saying, guys, when we put it all together with the scripture and the context in which all of this is wrapped up in a pretty little bow, the old mindset often speak before they listen. Let's be real. A lot of us, we speak before we hear 3 words. The person's still trying to explain themselves, and we are already formulating what we need to say, and we're cutting them off, and we haven't heard all of the thought yet. Generational correction begins when leaders slow down long enough to understand what a person means, what they fear, what their values are, and what they need. You know, Eli initially misunderstood Hannah's behavior, but he changed his response after listening to her explanation. And you can find that in 1 Samuel 1:13 through 17. It's all about listening, hearing, understanding, communicating properly. We have to understand how to communicate. So when we come over to expectations, and I've kind of touched on this already, so I'm going to touch on it and kind of breeze through it a little bit, guys. When we talk about it, think about it this way. Again, we go back to what people are listening for. Honor the history, be consistent, talk to me directly, be authentic. Show me purpose. Let me participate. You see how we're going? The traditional, which is your seasoned individuals, they want the honor. They have the honor, the history. Be consistent. That's how we communicate. And not all of us communicate that way because we're all on different spectrums. Some of your younger generations or your new individuals may come in and they may say, no, show me purpose. Show me why this is important. Let me participate or be authentic. Some of your emerging leaders may be like, trust me with responsibility. Give me feedback. Let me grow. They're all listening for different things. And we have to be mindful of that. Misunderstanding often happens when one group defines respect by a different set of signals. So what we're encouraged to do here, guys, is to make sure that we are listening. Okay? Listen to what is being said. You know, when we go over to 1 Timothy 5:1-2, it talks about rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father, and the younger men as brethren, the elder women as mothers, the younger as sisters, support. And then when you go over to Romans 12:10, it says, in honor, preferring one another. Y'all, these scriptures establish family-like honor across all age groups. It doesn't separate us, it brings unity. How do you bring unity? By listening, by communicating, by talking, by sharing, by being engaged with one another, by respecting one another. That's how we bring unity. Older adults are not to be handled with contempt, and younger adults are not to be treated as disposable or inferior, because they're not. We have to respect moves in both directions and includes tone, honesty, responsibility, and care. Think about it. How do you want somebody to communicate with you? Are you communicating in that same manner? Respect each other. So here, when we're talking about motivation, what makes people engage? What makes them engage? Belonging. I am seen and included. Purpose. The work matters. What are we doing here? Growth. I am being developed. You're educating me. You're teaching me. You're helping me to move to the next level. I won't be stagnant here. Respect. My contribution is valued. Impact. We are making a difference. Engagement is not forced by title. It is built through meaning. So regardless of whether you are a minister, whether you are a prophet, whether you are a secretary in the church, whether you are a mother in the church, whether you are a choir member, whether you are a pew member, it does not matter. Respect still goes both ways. Are we respecting each other? Are we engaging each other? How are we contributing all to the same mission, the same vision? Are we showing respect? Your title doesn't automatically make me respect you. Because if you talk crazy to somebody, now you just put up distance between you and them. And you just lost somebody because you disrespected them. And it was all because you communicated the wrong way. We have to get to a place to where we are communicating. Hebrews 10:24 says, let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works. So what does this mean from a leadership perspective? Sustainable motivation is larger than title, pressure, or applause. People engage when they understand purpose, see impact, experience belonging, and know their contribution matters. Godly leaders do not merely demand effort, they help people connect the assignment to a meaningful why. Think about that. A meaningful why. Leaders should not use guilt as the main motivator. Guilt may get attendance, but it does not create ownership. Instead, connect the assignment to purpose. Show how the person matters and create a pathway for development. And that goes both ways. So let's think about the church and think about how we can connect this. You know, the goal is not to make church feel corporate. The goal is to help ministries remain faithful to the mission while learning how to connect across ages and stages. So start with honor. Traditional members may carry the story of sacrifice: who prayed, who built, who served, who gave, who stayed. Young adults need to hear that story, but they need it as an invitation, not as a weapon. Then talk about translation. A leader can say, this is how we have always done it. Or the leader can say, this is why this matters to our mission. And here is where we can adjust the method. It's all about how you relay the message. Can't always tell them this how we done it and we gonna keep doing it this way. It doesn't work that way. Not with this new generation. We have to understand that they want to hear more. Emerging leaders need room to serve, not just permission to watch. Give them supervised responsibilities. feedback and a chance to learn. Connect with them, connect your younger generation with seasoned members so they receive wisdom, and allow them to bring tools such as social media, visuals, systems, and outreach ideas. Just because you don't understand technology does not give us the right to shut technology down and not incorporate it into the church or incorporate it into certain areas of ministry. Just because you are not accustomed to emails and text does not give us the right to shut it down, because we have to understand that we are in a new day, a new era, a new time where you're dealing with a different kind of generation, that they are coming up on all of these different advancements, all of these changes. We have to bridge the gap. So instead of shutting it down, we as the older generation have to sit down with the younger generation and say, you know what, teach me what you know, and then let me teach you what I know, and we bridge this gap. You know what, show me how to make my emails more efficient. Show me how to use technology, and we bridge the gap. Come on, y'all. We got to work this thing together. You know, one of the things that I love about biblical principles, I love how in the Bible, Elizabeth and Mary encouraged one another across age and life experience. When you look at Luke chapter 1, 39 through 45, and then when you look at Simeon and Anna, they recognized and proclaimed God's work surrounding the infant Jesus. So that's in Luke 2, 25 and 38. You see, they worked across generations. We got to do the same thing. So when we look at it from the corporate standpoint, for corporate leaders, multi-generational leadership is not about pleasing everyone. It is about aligning people around outcomes and standards and clear ways of working. A common corporate mistake is allowing each generation to define professionalism for everyone else. One person thinks professionalism means formal email. Another may think professionalism means quick response. One person wants scheduled meetings while another person may want short updates. Without shared agreements, people start judging each other instead of solving the problems. So we got to connect as leaders we got to connect both of those sides so we understand what each side is wanting. How do we communicate? What are we wanting? What are the results that we're looking for? What are the channels? How do we communicate using emails, chat, meetings? How are we doing this thing? What is the feedback? How do we give feedback? What's the best way to give it? How do we document our decisions? Do we write it down? Do we email it? What are we doing? When are they due? And how do we celebrate our wins? And when you look at the corporate side, y'all, these are the same things we can do in the church as well. So when we look at misunderstandings, y'all, this slide really just deals with where misunderstandings begin. So when we look at this, the same behavior can be interpreted in very different ways. Fast can look like disrespectful to one person and efficient to another. Slow can look irrelevant to one person and careful to another. Questions can look rebellious to one person and engaged to another. Silence can look like agreement to one person, but it may be fear, confusion, and disengagement to another. It's all about how we perceive certain things, which is why we have to communicate and establish how we are going to talk to each other, what our expectations are across these generational arenas. We got to be able to talk about it so that we understand each other. For me, I may want you to come on, send me a quick text so I can move on, while somebody else may want you to send a long drawn out text. Somebody else may want you to call them and give them a long drawn out, the backstory, the front story, the side story, while somebody else may want you to get right to the summary. Tell me short and sweet what happened so I can move on. But you got to communicate that. because people think differently. Okay? Do not punish people for meanings you never verified. If you interpret something the wrong way or a certain way, ask for clarity. So what I think I heard you say is XYZ. Is that correct? And allow them to clarify. And they can come back and say, oh, no, I'm sorry. You misunderstood. This is what I actually meant. It's all about communication. So correction from the old mindset, guys. Y'all, the mission is sacred. The method is adjustable. How do we make them fit us? That's the old way of thinking. The new way of thinking says, how do we help them grow into the mission? We have to understand it's not about control. It's about cultivation. How are we cultivating each other? It's not age wars. We're not fighting against each other. We are exchanging wisdom. Because there are some wise young people as well as seasoned individuals. Where it's not about protecting seats. It's about preparing successors. You're not sitting here trying to hold on to your spot. I got to keep this knowledge in because if I tell them what I know, they're going to take my place. No, we should be developing leaders. Tell them what you know because you are mentoring them. You are teaching them so they can one day sit in that spot and hopefully keep the legacy alive, keep the ministry going, keep the church going, keep the job going, keep the task going, keep the project going. And it's not about prove yourself first. We grow with accountability. Y'all, we growing together. We got to get to that point to where we are growing disciples. That's the mission, right? It's discipleship, worship, evangelism, service, holiness, prayer, community. We're building all of these things, but we got to communicate and come together. We're watering each other. But if you keep all the water for yourself, then the young generation will wither away because we're not pouring back into them. And then if the younger generation don't pour into us, the knowledge and the innovation, then it will become stagnant and no growth will happen because we're not growing together. We're fighting against each other. We have to know how to work together on both the church side and the corporate side. It's all about coming together. Okay? So here we go. Y'all, this image just speaks volumes. The bridge building leader. You see, you have the older generation, more seasoned generation, as I call them. They're pouring into the younger generation. They're pouring. Y'all, it's all about how are we building the next generation? Innovation without arrogance, honors without idolizing, clear without being cold, corrects without crushing, curious before critical. It means that all of these are positive things. We're being curious. You don't criticize. You're not crushing them. We can bring correction without crushing somebody. What are we doing? Think about it. Are you pouring into the next generation? Or has it stopped with you and nobody is growing up under you? You got to ask yourself that. So here are some tools that we're going to get into real quick. And we're going to talk about what tools you can use. So tool 1, translate the message. Before you correct, translate. What do I need them to know, feel, and do? So what does this mean? Translation does not mean softening truth until it loses meaning. Translation means delivering truth in a way that the listener can understand and act on it. Walk through what we're walking through right now is looking at this table. Look at common message. Be at the meeting. Real meaning, your voice matters. Better delivery is We need your voice at 6 a.m. Please confirm. You see the difference in that? I went from being controlling, be at the meeting, versus the other message, which is my tone and how I deliver it, your voice, my tone, because your voice matters, right? I went from be at the meeting to changing the tone of that to say, hey, we need your voice because that's what it's about. I want them to know that I need to hear from them. I want their innovation. I want to know what their thoughts are. Same way with that is not how we do it. See, I'm saying, okay, there's a standard here, but what do I really mean? So what I'm saying here is the standard and why it matters. This is why it matters to me. And then we go to, you need to be patient. So now I'm talking about, okay, it's growth. Growth is a process. So now I have to change my tone and say, here's the pathway and next step. It's all about how are we communicating? We have to be clear in what we say. Y'all, it's just like Nehemiah 8:8, when he says they read in the book in the law of God distinctly and gave the sense and caused them to understand the reading. So what that means is that it is when it comes to the translation in the biblical sense, the leaders did not change God's word. They helped people understand it. Jesus also used familiar images and parables to connect truth, eternal truth, to everyday life as well. So how are we relaying our message? If Jesus can do it in a way to get our attention and he does it to where we understand it, why aren't we doing the same thing? Think about that. Clarity means something. Are you presenting messages in a manner to where people can understand it? Where the younger generation or the older generation, if you're young on here and you listen, are you communicating in a way that it bridges that gap to where the seasoned understand what you're saying and the younger they're understanding what you're saying? Okay. Tool 2, set communication agreements. When channels are unclear, people turn preferences into accusations. So think about it this way. Urgent, what do urgent messages, where do urgent messages go? Who do I give that to? Who do I send it to? Decisions, how are decisions confirmed? Feedback, when and how does feedback happen? Conflict, what does respectful disagreement look like? Can we agree to disagree? Follow up, who owns the next step and due date? It's all about sharing a clear understanding, communication agreement. We understand who does what, how we do what we do. We understand. It's a shared agreement where you understand how I communicate and my style. I understand your style. We have set our standards because we understand each other. See, when we understand each other, it's all about write the vision, make it plain. So if we both are writing the vision and making it plain, we understand each other. Now we can run with this vision because we're on the same playing field, right? We understand each other. We know the vision. We know where we're trying to go. We know how to communicate. We know how to talk. We know how to get this thing done. Let's do it because we've made it clear. We've set a standard. All right. Tool 3, mutual mentoring. And we're almost done, guys. When we talk about mutual mentoring, y'all, mentoring is not a one-way lecture. It is a shared investment in the future. Seasoned leaders give history, wisdom, standards, character, discernment. Emerging leaders, your younger generation coming up, they're bringing your technology, cultural insight, energy, new questions, future reach, because they're trying to grow. So the baton is not dropped when leaders prepare the handoff. So when we're educating the younger generation and it's going both ways, we've bridged that gap. All we're doing is we're educating them so that one day we can pass the baton and they can continue to grow the mission, to grow the vision, to take it to the next level. Are we growing? Are we growing our leaders? Our younger generation, what are we doing? Or are we holding on to that wisdom and that knowledge? versus passing it on. Think about that. So when we talk about meetings that include every generation, look at it this way. Before, send purpose, agenda, and what decisions need to be made. That's before your meeting, whether it's in the church or whether it's in corporate America. During, use voice rounds so quiet people and newer voices are not ignored. So ask questions, engage them. Hey, what are your thoughts? Pam, what do you think? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. I'd love to hear some innovation. Hey, and sometimes y'all, they don't want to talk. So say, hey, why don't you think about it and then bring me your thoughts back to the table, or text me. You got to know how to communicate and bridge that gap, but set a deadline for when you want to hear back from them. And then after, send a recap, decisions, owners, deadlines, who's doing what. So for church, you got to think about ministry huddles, board meetings, volunteer teams. Corporate, we're thinking about staff meetings, project meetings, performance conversations. Think about that, guys. It's all about how are we communicating. So here we go with practice. All right. All I want us to think about is these two scenarios real quick. So here you have church scenario. Young adults want social media led outreach. Traditional leaders worry reverence and order will be lost. You see what I'm saying? So now you have the traditional going against the younger versus coming together and creating a bridge. So how do we get to this place to where we're all working together? That is why the picture speaks volumes, because they're standing there engaging in conversation, trying to bridge that gap. When you go over to corporate America and it says seasoned employees prefer email and approvals, newer employees prefer chat and fast iteration, deadlines suffer. That's the thought, right? But they're all coming together at the table to figure out what is the best solution and how do they bridge that gap. It's all about how do we bridge the gap. And a lot of times what happens with us is that we have underlying fear. We have things that maybe we need to heal from. Maybe we've been hurt before in the church. Maybe we've been, whatever the case, on the job, whatever it is. Let that fear go and know that we have to come together for the good of the kingdom. I don't care what chair you sit in, whether it's corporate America or whether it is the church house. At the end of the day, we are all growing the kingdom. You are a reflection on the job as well as the church. And we got to come together and bridge the gap and be who God called us to be in whatever setting, whether you are young or old. We all got to sit down and make sure that we are doing the work of the kingdom together. And what that means is we communicate. We put all of our own personal things aside and we come together and we work together as kingdom children, as God's children, period. There's no ifs, ands, buts about that. We all got to come together. So think about that. Ask yourself, are you bridging the gap or are you tearing down the bridge? What are you doing? So here's my 30-day leadership action plan for you guys. For 4 weeks, one bridge, real progress. So what I encourage you to do is take a look at the gaps, audit the gaps. Identify where communication or expectations are breaking down, whether it be for you at church or whether it be for you on your job. Look at where the communication, you feel like there's a break in that communication. And then week 2, I want you to host a listening circle. Ask what people need to feel respected, informed, and included. So talk to people that are around you and ask real questions. Because we're focused on what we need to do to be better, right? So ask them, what do I need to do in order to make sure that you feel respected, informed, and included? And then set agreements on week 3. Define channels, meetings, feedback, decisions, rules, and follow-up. And then week 4, pair leaders. Launch mentoring pairs across generations or experience levels. So if even sometimes we all got to go and get a mentor sometimes, if because we need to be taught. I don't care how old you are. Sometimes we all need a mentor in our life. We need somebody that is a little bit more seasoned than us to be able to show us and speak to things that they see in us that we don't see ourselves, because sometimes we can think we got it all together and we ain't got it all together. So let's be real. I don't care how old you are or how young you are. We all got some stuff in us that we need to work on, and we need to get right with Christ. We need to be checked on. So get you a mentor and allow them to speak into your life, a godly mentor, somebody that is about Christ, that is a man or woman after God's heart, that has the fear of the Lord on them, that is truly about the true word of Christ. Period. Get you somebody that can speak into your life. All right. So your accountability question, what will we change by this time next month? Think about that. Okay. All right. So y'all, as we close, think about it this way. Look at this bridge. We're bridging the gap, right? This generation is not our competition. It is our continuation. That's what this is all about, y'all. We are building the bridge. We carry the wisdom. We release the future. Because at the end of the day, all of us will go on to glory at some point in time. Somebody got to carry on the baton. And if we don't allow these kids, these younger generations behind us, the younger generation behind us, to keep that baton going, then it dies off. What we've worked and sweat and what you have invested time and energy in, it will die off because we didn't invest in the next generation so that they can keep it going and take it to the next level. So ask yourself, what's one mindset that you will correct? What is one person that you will listen to? What is one leader you will develop? What is one communication habit you will change? Y'all, I want to say again, thank you. It has been your evangelist, Pamela Edmondson, with another training with Rise Leadership Academy, where we seek to refine, inspire, sharpen, and equip, where our pastor and founder is Elder Brandon Clay. I pray that you have gain something from this training. Go back, watch it again. Y'all be blessed and know that we are all in this together. We are growing together. We are building this bridge together. So come on, let's keep building this bridge. Let's get it right. Let's do things not our way, but God's way. I love you all. Be blessed. See you next month.